You're going to spend thousands and thousands of hours training on your journey to mastery. And what's crazy is that despite all this time training, you may be improving in one of the slowest ways possible. Not because your coaches don't have good intentions, but because they don't know how to teach you how to optimize your training experience. The good news is this: there are principles that you can apply to your training that will help you lap your competition and improve much faster than you currently are. These principles were designed by Karl Anders Ericsson, the world's leading researcher on expertise. And in this video, I'll be showing you how to apply those principles in your training. In his book, Peak, Anders Ericsson describes 3 different forms of practice: naive practice, purposeful practice, and deliberate practice. Naive practice is the least effective form of practice for improving your skills. In naive practice, you get some instructions from a coach or a video, you practice it until you reach an acceptable level, and then you let it become automatic. Most of us assume that if we keep practicing, we are bound to get better. But this is simply not the case. It is very important to understand that once you reach a satisfactory skill level and the skill has become automatic, you have stopped improving. The unfortunate reality is that this is how most athletes practice, especially athletes in team sports. Practice is usually carried out in groups with no attempt to figure out what each athlete should be working on, and this makes the learning process much slower. A better form of practice that allows us to continuously improve is purposeful practice. Purposeful practice consists of 4 principles. Purposeful practice has well-defined specific goals. You can't just go through the motions. You need to know exactly what you want to improve. You need to have a long-term target of what you want your performance to look like and break it down into smaller components. You then set goals on how you're going to improve each of those smaller components in your training. The second principle is that you have to focus. If you are just showing up and going through the motions without being fully engaged, you are not purposely practicing. You need to be intensely focused in order to achieve the specific goals that you have set for yourself. The third principle is that we need to leave our comfort zone. Purposeful practice involves trying to do something you cannot do, something that will take you out of your comfort zone, and then practicing it over and over again, focusing on exactly how you are doing it, where you're falling short, and how you can get better. The fourth principle is feedback. You need to get immediate feedback of what you're doing in order to adjust to what is working and what is not working. This important principle brings us to the next and most effective form of practice, which is deliberate practice. Deliberate practice shares the same principles as purposeful practice, but it also requires having a coach who is familiar with the abilities of expert performers and how those abilities can be best developed. A knowledgeable and effective coach helps guide us on the best path to improvement by giving us informed feedback. The reason why these training principles are so important is because they allow us to develop better mental representations of different skills, techniques, and game strategies. The concept of mental representations is very important to understand in order to appreciate the significance of deliberate practice. The quality of an athlete's mental representations is often what separates the best athletes from the rest. Mental representations are patterns of information stored in our memory that allow us to quickly process large amounts of information and respond quickly and effectively in certain situations. I know that this definition is abstract and hard to wrap your mind around, so bear with me. I'm going to give you some examples that will make this easier to understand. The first example is a study done on soccer players. When soccer players were shown videos of real soccer matches and the videos were suddenly stopped when a player received the ball, the more accomplished soccer players were much better at predicting what would happen next and what the player should do. The more accomplished soccer players were also better at remembering the details from the last frame of the video before it was hidden to them, such as where the players were located and in what direction they were moving. Baseball gives us another example of the power of mental representations. In professional baseball, pitchers are able to throw the ball at speeds that exceed 90 miles per hour. Being able to consistently hit balls that are pitched at these speeds is impossible for anyone who hasn't spent years training this skill. The reason that baseball players are able to hit these balls is because through years of hitting pitches and getting immediate feedback, they have formed mental representations that allow them to quickly recognize what sort of pitch is coming and where it will likely be when it reaches them. The last example I will give you may be the easiest to wrap your mind around. If you show an expert chess player a board in the middle of a game, they will remember where those pieces are way better than someone who is not familiar with chess. These chess players appear to have better memory, but the reality is that they don't. Because if you were to mix those pieces up into weird positions that could never happen in a game, their memory is just as good as those people who don't play chess. So it's not that chess players have extraordinary memory, it's that they have better mental representations of different scenarios that could happen in a game. These examples show us the power of mental representations on performance. The better an athlete's mental representations, the better their performances will be. This is why deliberate practice is so important. Deliberate practice allows us to continuously build, improve, and refine our mental representations. It becomes a feedback loop. As our performance improves, our mental representations become more detailed and effective, which makes it possible to improve even more. Now, before exiting this video, stop and ask yourself truthfully if you're currently using the principles of purposeful and deliberate practice in your training. My guess is that the answer will be no for most of you. Although most athletes would agree that these are important principles, most athletes do not apply them in their training. Sustaining this type of practice can be an effortful process. But if you're serious about improving your skills, these principles will allow you to improve at a much faster rate.